Hello, everyone. My name is George Nichols. I'm with the Dream Home team of Exit Preferred Realty. And today I'm with Jason Lerner, who is with George Mason Mortgage. So, Jason, if you could introduce yourself to everybody, tell them who you are.
Yeah, grateful, George. First of all, I'm exceptionally excited to be hanging out with you today. In fact, not only am I wearing a fancy shirt for a Zoom call, I even put on fancy pants today. That's how excited I am to be here with your folks and helping people make good decisions about home buying stuff for sure. So I run the Maryland market for George Mason Mortgage. So I'm an executive at George Mason Mortgage. I've been in the mortgage industry as a mortgage guy for 18 years. I've helped over 6,000 families. So I've seen probably every scenario and every situation that there is. I have an MBA. I study the markets, and I take it really personal when someone trusts me with their financing. I take great pride in being able to put together a plan and making sure that whatever we do is the best for them today, but also long term. So I really take a lot of pride in using my experience and my understanding of the markets to help create a plan that works for folks. I'm married, two sons. I think I've been married for 19 years now. So I've seen it all. I remember buying a home, my first home. I remember buying my second home. So not just from a black and white, unemotional professional perspective, but from a personal place, I take a lot of pride in helping folks and really understanding where they're coming from for sure.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. People have a better idea now of who exactly I'm talking to and how much of
Sure.
a credible source you are for the topic that we'll be getting in today, which is how to transition from renting a home to owning a home. It's a huge thing to do, and for anyone. So the first question that I have is, why should someone own a home rather than rent a home?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that I know a lot of my clients do a lot of soul searching with. It's one that I remember doing soul searching on, prior to buying my first home. And there's probably two different, ways to think about it. There's the black and white, unemotional financial part. So for me, as a guy that takes great pride in trying to build wealth for people and help them be in the best possible situation they can be to build this big old thing that they leave behind in a legacy. I recognize the role that buying a home plays in that. It's an investment opportunity. So, especially over the last, really my entire career, 18-year career, I've seen people really accumulate great equity in their homes, buying, and our markets have been so robust in Maryland that people have been able to really get a profit through appreciation. But it's also this forced savings account too, right? So every month you're making a mortgage payment, and rather than rent where you're paying someone else's mortgage, this mortgage payment that you're making, a great part of it goes into the equity of the home. So this forced savings account that you can access later when you sell your home, or even sooner by doing a refinance or a home equity line of credit. So you always have this access to funds as a homeowner too. So there's that really good, I think, important black and white economic part of it. Helps you build your credit, helps you protect yourself against inflation. So a lot of hard hitting money reasons, but I think there's a lot to be said for the emotional part. Especially for someone who wants to have freedom. You can own pets without having to worry about it. You can make changes. You can be in a community and be a part of the community and really help. There's lots of studies that show how owning a home really helps someone's wealth, but also their family development and success factors for children. Those are the kinds of things that I spend probably a nerdy amount of time reading about, and helps me take great pride in my job that I'm helping folks, really build something big for their family for sure.
And definitely making that transition from renting to owning a home is something that people should definitely be thinking about. But when is the right time to be making that transition? Because it's not a small one at all. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So how does someone know when is the right time to own a home?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And there's probably different answers for different people at different stages of their life. I think in today's market, again, kind of the two pronged where one's the economic part and one's maybe the emotional part. From an economic perspective, it feels like we're in the middle of this perfect storm of incredibly low interest rates, rates in the mid to higher twos right now. And a market that feels exceptionally stable and feels like, all economic indicators that it's going to continue to remain stable and long-term growth and appreciation. So from a black and white economic perspective, it feels like a perfect time now. That said, there's also a lot of other questions that people should be asking themselves about their own personal situation before, committing to this home. I think, one of the things that I would really ask myself before buying a home would be trying to figure out the time horizon I'm going to be in the property. There's closing costs that go into a home. There's some initial investments that even if the home appreciates in value significantly, it really is going to take a few years to recoup some of the closing costs and upfront expense. So I think the question that emotionally that I would ask myself before buying a home is, what does my career path look like? Do I have good job stability? Am I going to be in this, geographic location for, 3-5 years? Those are the things I'd really want a clear picture of to be able to purchase a home. But again, from a unemotional, looking for an investment, looking for something that, over history has proven to reap a return on your investment, real estate's always proven to be a consistent investment mechanism. So, to answer your question about when is right, I think there's a couple things that really become important. So the economic factors already are there. We can always already check those boxes. For a personal decision, though, I'd want to work with a lender and a realtor that understand your situation and can demonstrate what a mortgage payment looks like relative to what your rental payment looks like. So if you're able to maintain your rental payment currently and feel very comfortable, and that's a comparable payment. In fact, the folks I hang out with and I work with right now are recognizing that their mortgage payments are actually lower than their rental payments. So not only are they able to generate wealth by making a good investment and force savings by paying into your equity, but they're also paying less per month. So now they have additional funds to invest or to save too. But I would really examine your current situation if your rent feels very comfortable, and also understanding that although there's lots of programs that help with down payments, in general, there's going to be some amount of money needed up front at settlement. So, again, I'd want to make sure that someone's comfortable with their monthly payments, as well as comfortable knowing that there's going to be some initial investment that needs to happen.
And now, hypothetically speaking, I'm a renter, and I just heard everything you said, your spiel about, why I should own a home rather than renting, and when's the right time for me to transition from renting to owning a home. And, I'm completely sold. I want to buy a home.
Sure.
What are the steps in purchasing a home, generally speaking?
Yeah, I'd say the probably most important step of the entire home buying process, whether you're a first-time home buyer and transitioning or even a repeat person, is really hanging out with people, specifically finding and identifying a realtor and a lender that care about you and want to do what's best for you and are willing to make decisions that, may not always be, not motivated by what's best for them and their commission, but really are going to do the things that it takes to make sure that you're in the best financial position you can be in. If you work with a realtor and a lender that care about you and that, you can trust and deserve your trust, everything else really does fall into place. But I'd say those are the two most important parts. There's lots of other steps that I'll talk about, but I think if you have people around you that care and know what they're doing, everything else will go well. It's a rough crowd that we run around with. Not every realtor and lender are created equal. In fact, doing it for 18 years, I've seen that, there's definitely lots of realtors and lenders that care about their clients and maybe don't know what they're doing. And then there's lots of realtors and lenders that maybe know what they're doing, but don't care about their clients. And it's really hard to find that perfect combination of someone who knows what they're doing and cares about their clients. So, and that's not me trying to sweet talk anyone into calling me, but I would say that it's important to really vet the folks that you hang out with and make sure that they have your best interests top of mind above anything else, for sure. And then in terms of kind of a checklist of things to get ready for purchasing a home, with that in mind, once you've identified the right lender and the right real estate agent, I think it's important to really spend a lot of time, not just getting pre-approved. You hear people say pre-approved. That's important. What the pre-approval process looks like is hanging out with your lender. Lender helps you make application, look at your credit, look at your income and asset, and different things about your profile to make sure that you're able to be qualified for a loan. But I think an important step of that pre-approval process is to have a really good understanding of what your monthly payment is going to be. Just because I can approve you for it doesn't mean that it's going to be comfortable for you. It's that perfect balance of becoming qualified, but really having a great understanding and comfort level with what the payments look like, what the expected money that you need at settlement looks like. So I think, to me, the most important steps are really making sure that those money pieces, not only that you're qualified, but that they feel comfortable for you and your family, and you can recognize that there's going to be this powerful long-term investment. So I think those are probably the first couple steps. Also, it's good to understand what your credit profile looks like. So that's probably a pretty early step as part of the pre-approval process. making sure that your credit profile fits the requirements. And if not, a good lender can help give you some direction and put a plan in place to get you where you need to go. And then also too, making sure that, there's a plan that you either have sufficient funds for settlement. And again, with different programs, that might be a very small number, but whatever that program that fits your needs, making sure that you have the ability to bring enough money to settlement. And again, if not, a lender can help you put a plan in place to get there for sure. So I think those are the most important ones. I think, a lot of times some people do it differently, backwards, where they get really excited and emotional about buying a house without understanding what the payment looks like, right? I mean, to me, I think the financial part has to be the foundation and all the other fun stuff happens afterwards. I'm kind of the boring guy that, sure you're making good educated decisions. And then the exciting part of hanging out with you, George, you're so lovable, go out and show people some homes, but I think it has to be in place for sure.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes the boring decisions are the best decisions to make in the long run.
For sure. Absolutely.
But you were saying something about there being costs during settlement. I thought that you could just, buy a home, like you buy this home and you make the payments every month. Are there upfront costs with purchasing a home?
Yeah, so there's no layaway programs for homes, if that's what you're asking me, George. No, and there's lots of different programs out there. And even when there are some of the down payment assistance programs, there's still going to be closing costs. So to kind of talk through what that looks like, in general, there's going to be a down payment requirement. Typically for a first-time home buyer, that can be 100% financing if someone's a veteran. It could be 100% financing if they're looking in a rural area through USDA is a great program that offers 100% financing. It's one of my favorite programs. It can be 100% financing if someone qualifies for different grant programs that we participate in. But if those programs, again, some of them have pluses and minuses. If it's not the right program, then then in general, some of the down payment requirements for conventional financing are typically 3% for a first-time home buyer and 3.5% for an FHA loan. So those are, for example, if someone's purchasing a $200,000 home, we'd either want to utilize one of those 100% financing programs or be prepared to bring $6,000 or $7,000 for a down payment. There's also closing costs too. So especially in Maryland, there's transfer taxes that a first-time homebuyer gets a small break on, but those numbers still kind of grow. In general, I'd say the closing costs are always in the ballpark of 3.5%, 4%, maybe a little bit higher if you're buying in Baltimore City. The taxes and expenses that Baltimore City have are higher, but there's lots of ways to again, participate in grant programs or through a wonderful negotiator like you, George. Sometimes you can talk to the seller about something called seller contribution. It's a tough market right now to have that kind of conversation, but I'm seeing more of that being reintroduced to our market lately for sure.
Yeah, that's really great news. And you were speaking a little bit about first-time home buyers and some of the benefits that they get, which is, all of like the grants and then the tax break as well for the transfer taxes. But what are some of the other benefits as that a first-time home buyer gets?
Yeah, so the big ones are the tax benefits and eligibility for different grant programs. In Maryland, there's the county charges some transfer taxes and the state charges transfer taxes. But as a first-time home buyer, you become exempt from that state transfer tax. So it eliminates about 1/4% of the purchase price. So again, for a $200,000 home, $500 that you're avoiding of transfer taxes. There's also different programs, again, specific to grant stuff that you may be eligible for. So part of my job isn't not letting you rely on your self-diagnosis of what programs make sense. It's really understanding someone's information when they come to me and making sure that they're aware of all the programs and helping them make a good decision about whether the grant programs are the best one. There's some amazing grant programs, and I think my company's one of, if not the top participant in a lot of the state-specific and city-specific programs. There are ways between someone getting a grant program and some seller contribution where they may need no money at settlement, or if if they're a veteran, they may need no money at settlement between those two things. Also, for some USDA loans, they may not need any money at settlement. In fact, not only can you negotiate for the seller to pay for it, rates are so low right now, where especially me as an executive, I'm able to understand, what different rates are available and maybe structure the loan in a way where I'm actually covering a lot of, if not all of the closing costs for someone too, and still having a rate that's in the twos. There's a lot of really creative things that we can do to make the process as easy as possible. So, those are things as a first-time home buyer, it becomes really important to hang out with the right lender and realtor to make sure that you're at least offered those opportunities to decide whether it's the right program for you or not.
With things changing so much in the market, what's the best way for people to stay informed about market stats and all of these rates and loan products? Like, where can people go other than realtors and mortgage brokers
Sure.
like me and you? Are there resources online that they can go to?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, again, I feel like my role as a lender is not just to get someone pre-approved or even secure financing. It's really, some element of it is a wealth planner. It's a resource that someone could call every day and check on the status of rates. I have access to, a lot of things that influence rates aren't the traditional things that someone can just Google and see. In fact, I pay money for different services that actually kind of give me real-time data that isn't necessarily available to all the consumers. There's definitely different places that if you, check in on, I hate to say it out loud because it's not a perfect resource, but even like a bank rate or something, at least it tells you the trend of where things are going. But a lot of that also is kind of a bait click kind of marketing going on a bank rate, for example. But
Yeah. Is bank rate like the Zillow for mortgage brokers?
it is, yeah. In
Oh,
fact,
man.
I'm getting uncomfortable talking about it for sure.
Sorry,
So
I go on bank rate all the time, so it's funny that you're saying that.
yeah, it kind of is. I mean, it's, I think it's good for like general trends, but specific information, I wouldn't rely on it for sure. I think, again, you know, back to what we said about the most important step of purchasing a home is finding the right folks that care about you. And then if they really care about you, they will have no problem, even daily giving you their thoughts of what the market's doing, So I know doesn't necessarily answer your question, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for someone to independently search. But I think if someone cares about you, they're going to make sure you're making good decisions, and they'd welcome, frequent conversations about the direction of home values. I'm sure you would appreciate someone calling you about what you're seeing in the streets, and I would do the same. And there are, a bank rate. There's, I go on CNN bonds even sometimes to kind of see a flavor of what bonds are happening. That helps me understand what rates are doing a little bit. But in general, I'd say milk up the professional that you've chosen to hang out with. Make them earn your business by using them as a resource, not just when you're in process, but as you're making big decisions about whether you should buy or what your timing feels like, for sure.
If you're a renter, like, what's something that you can be doing right now in order to prepare to buy 6 months, a year, or 2 years down the road?
Yeah, I think the very first kind of assessment you should do of your situation is understand what your credit looks like. Even if it's 12 months in advance, I think it's never too early to consult a mortgage person and maybe start that preliminary approval process and have them run your credit. Even if it's a long-term thing, a question I get really asked up pretty often is, how is this going to affect my credit? I don't want you to pull my credit because it's going to negatively impact my credit. And that's not accurate. I mean, excessive credit inquiries, especially, if you're buying a home, a car, applying for credit cards, all at the same time, that can absolutely have a negative impact on your credit score. But if you're someone who doesn't have frequent inquiries and you have an isolated mortgage application, it's going to have very little impact on your credit score. So 12 months out, I would say that to go ahead and work with a lender and have them understand what your credit profile looks like, have them give you an idea of what payments and projected closing costs could look like, and down payment, and start saving. I think it's important to make sure not only to have savings for down payment or closing costs, but as a homeowner, there's some additional expenses. There's furniture, there's upkeep of a home. I'd want to make sure that you're coming from a really strong position. So I think that savings and really understanding what your situation feels like are great first steps, even if it's 12 or 6 months out ahead of time.
Well, I mean, those are all the questions that I have for you today. You answered them very well. I learned a lot myself from this discussion that we had, and I'm sure a bunch of people are going to as well. So to really end things off, is there anything else that you want to say about yourself or the company that you're with?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I take it real personal. I mean, this is a big deal, buying a house and without the right guidance, without the right advice, without the right person who really cares about you, I think it changes the experience. Someone who's looking, I've built my business on trying to make as little money as I can off of as many people as possible, and try to charge the lowest rate I can without getting fired. And as an executive, it's extra hard to fire me. So, I take great pride in that for sure. I'm absolutely ride or die in my heart, and I give till it hurts. And I recognize that, this is a big deal for someone. So, I think it's important that my favorite kind of client is an educated client. And I feel like it's my responsibility to help them make good decisions about everything by providing information. So I'd love to be a resource to you and to your clients, even if they're not using me for financing. If there's something I can do to help them ensure that they're in the best possible financial position, I'd absolutely love to play that role for sure.
All right. And guys, I'm going to vouch for Jason here. He is absolutely one of the nicest and most genuine people that I know. Which is, why I wanted to have him on here to speak to you all and share all of the wealth of knowledge that he has about the mortgage approval process. So thank you again, Jason, for coming here today. It was great speaking to you. And yeah.
My pleasure, George. No, man, you're the best. Who wouldn't want to hang out with you? So this is my pleasure for sure.